Welcome back to Bitcoin in Depth. I'm Keren Margolis, and I'm back again for Sasco Digital Assets with our CEO, Omar Sabek. And today we are getting a little bit more in depth into what is Bitcoin mining. So, Omar, we know that miners mine starting by solving a complicated cryptographic puzzle, and then whoever solve that puzzle first, wins the right to verify chunks of transactions called blocks added to the blockchain. Those are verified by the network, and then the miner is rewarded with Bitcoins. So what does that mean? What is the puzzle, and what are they competing to do? How does that even work?
So it's really replicating the way gold mining works, but it's using math and cryptography to accomplish the same result, right?
So how's that?
So if you think about mining Bitcoin, you're taking computer power, you're using that computer power to solve these cryptographic puzzles. And whichever miner, like you said, whichever miner solves the puzzle gets in reward Bitcoin. And right now at where we are in terms of the halving cycles, it's 6.25 Bitcoins. Now, if you...
And halving cycles refer to the halving of the Bitcoin reward.
Correct, yeah. So it would, every 4 years, there's a halving of that reward. So right now it's 6.125 in 2024. It's going to be, 6.25 now. In 2024, it's going to be 3.125. And it's going to continue to halve for the next 120 years.
And so that means that the financial incentive of the Bitcoin reward to mine is cut in half every 4 years. So what continues to incentivize people to mine?
Because the value goes up over time as well. And the reason why the value goes up over time is because if you zoom out and you look at it as a whole economic ecosystem, the Bitcoin network is designed and engineered to be a deflationary currency.
Right.
Adoption, because of the attractive properties of Bitcoin, the fact that it's a very easy to use store of value. You can store it digitally. You could send it anywhere in the world. It's got all these amazing properties. It's like gold, but better than gold. There's a constant demand for it. That demand drives a market. That market drives value. That value incentivizes the miners to want to get that Bitcoin to sell onto the market.
So what are they actually doing? What's the puzzle that they have to solve? How do they compete to do it? And then what does that mean once they've solved it?
So every block we can consider every block as its own puzzle. And the way it works is a block is full of transactions. Those transactions are formed into a hash, which is the puzzle. And that hash is added to the timestamp of the previous block to create another hash. And it's that hash that becomes the problem that needs to be solved by the miners.
So the problem that needs to be solved by the miners is what links the new block to the old blocks and then enables a further block to link to that block.
Exactly.
And verifies the transactions within the block.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it verifies the transaction within the block, and it verifies that block is the next progression from the block previous to it, which is the blockchain. So it's like a chain of blocks.
So it cannot be messed with.
You would have to acquire an impossible amount of hashing power to mess with that system. Yeah, the answer to that is no, it can't be messed with. Because we're talking about cryptography here.
Right.
We're talking about computers. So the only conceivable way to impact the way this whole economic alignment around the value of Bitcoin is to acquire enough processing power to take control of 51% of the network. And if anyone was able to take control of 51% or get enough miners together to apply 51% of the processing power to the network, then they would be able to
alter the
create
blockchain?
New transactions, not double spend, but they would be able to really, take the immutable property of Bitcoin out of it and, spend Bitcoin, just create transactions that didn't exist. The good news is that it's effectively impossible at this stage to acquire 51% of the mining power. It probably became impossible around 2013, 2014.
So as time goes on and the Bitcoin network grows, that's going to become less and less possible.
Well, it's impossible now. Yeah, conceivably, yeah. But it's impossible now. So ASICs really made it impossible because ASICs are really specialized circuits that they come out of a limited supply chain. They're hard to produce.
And
the
ASICs
ASIC themselves is worth, it's almost like having Bitcoin because it can create you Bitcoin. So getting your hands on that, the
And
value
ASICs
goes up over time with Bitcoin as well.
Well, just to be clear, ASICs are it's hardware that is specifically just for Bitcoin mining. So it doesn't
Yes.
have other applications. It's all of its processing power is just specifically made for that.
Yeah, you could probably, I mean, you can use them to perform other functions, but it's super optimized for solving cryptographic puzzles, and you know, whether it's Bitcoin or any other blockchain, it's really optimized for that, for mining. Yeah.
So you need these ASICs to mine. So so can I mine? Can I be a miner? Right now, I'm not a miner. I'm not a node. I'm not anything. I just have Bitcoin. So if I wanted to get up to the level of mining, what would I have to do? And could I even do it? I don't have an ASIC, and I probably never will have an ASIC.
So it's not that complicated, actually. You would have to do some research. You would have to figure out, you know, when you would break even. You know, that's the first thing. You'd want to, you know, work out how much your miner is going to cost. You know, what is the price of Bitcoin today? You might want to try to project what the difficulty is going to do over time. And the difficulty is how much harder is it going to be to get Bitcoin over time? Mm-hmm. And if you can work all these things out, you get a nice little spreadsheet, mm-hmm. right? You put in your input costs, which is electricity, hosting costs if you're putting it in a data center, cooling costs potentially, the upfront cost for the miner itself. And you would have, now that you would have your cost, and you would have to figure out, you know, how much Bitcoin is this going to get you over time? How much is that Bitcoin going to be worth, when you would break even and when you would become profitable?
So I'm not going to do
business.
that.
It's a
so
business.
I will not ever be a miner, is what we're saying.
It's highly competitive.
Yeah.
And the best miners are the ones that are able to get really cheap electricity. So if you were deploying your miners in a place like, let's say, you know, Washington State, where they have an abundance of hydroelectric, or anywhere else, you know, you would be able to probably be profitable sooner than, you know, not as efficient, you know, sources of energy.
So I know that in the early days when it was just Satoshi, sorry, how humiliating for me. When it was just Satoshi Nakamoto and like his boys just mining on like a phone, then they could just mine easily. Like you just needed like a personal computer or whatever. Why is it that you can't really do that anymore? Why do you need a specialized piece of hardware like an ASIC? Why can't I just turn on my computer and get rich?
Yeah, you're right. So way back when, you could have a laptop, you could have a tower, and you would be able to, you know, use your processing power just from those devices to get Bitcoin. You know, we're talking about 2010, 2011. Why can't you do that today? Because of the difficulty adjustment. So as competition, as hashing power joins the network, there's a algorithm that's there to detect that and increase the difficulty so that it becomes harder and more competitive to get that Bitcoin.
Why does it need to be harder and more competitive with more people trying to mine?
Because it simulates the way mining works in the real world. You know, it's not, when you're mining for any kind of precious metal, when you're mining for gold, it does get harder over time because the drill only goes as deep as, you know, it was designed to go. And so you have to get better technology to go deeper. You have to get more efficient. You have to lower your costs to be more profitable. It replicates it, because that is the natural world. It's really replicated in the natural world. And that's one thing, you know, about Bitcoin that I love, is it's taken, you know, a real, you know, a real world economic system that's existed and that's stood the test of time. All mining.
Yeah.
If you think about it, all mining works this way. Commodities work this way. You know, there's supply, there's demand, and it's replicated that in the digital world. And that one link that connects the physical world to the digital world is the energy.
Right.
You know, so when we talk about why Bitcoin takes, you know, energy and how does energy play into it, that is, you know, really the only connection that we have into this new, you know, digital world. And the parallels to gold are there. It's just physical versus virtual.
So, and by the way, we have an awesome video about this specific topic. If you guys want to go back and look through our playlist, we discuss this. We specifically explain it. But what happens if the difficulty is not adjusted? So why can't I just buy 1 million ASICs, be the most powerful miner who ever lived, like a superwoman, and just mine all of the Bitcoins at once?
You would definitely. So if you bought, let's say, 10% of the hash power on a network, you would be mining 10% of the Bitcoin, right?
But at great cost.
It would cost you an incredible amount of money to get 10%, you know, that upfront cost to become 10% of the network. But you would be mining 10% of Bitcoin And the difficulty level, so let's say you weren't on the network and you went and you applied 10% of the hash rate to the network, the difficulty should go up by at the very least 10% to compensate for that new competition that joined the network. And we go back to the analogy of gold, right? The more gold miners there are in the world mining gold, the more there's supply that's going to be hit in the market. And what's that going to do to prices? Tank it to the point where it could tank it so much. So if there was just no cap to the amount of Bitcoin that could be mined at any given point in time, there could be an oversupply that's dumped onto the market, and that would destroy the very sensitive kind of relationship that you have in the market that makes it valuable. The network effects could be destroyed.
But why would the network effect be destroyed? Because I know that the total supply of Bitcoin that can ever exist is finite, capped at 21 million Bitcoin. So what does it matter if they're mined now or mined later? Why does there need to be this specific kind of flow ratio?
Because if we consider there's 3 million Bitcoins that are left to be mined around, if we consider that those, let's say 3 million Bitcoins were mined in the next year, that would create an incredible supply glut on the market that would destroy the value of Bitcoin. And so it's designed to be something that is desirable, and more desirable over time, because it's really an economic system that has to stand the test of time, and it has to be impervious to any kind of failure. Mm-hmm. So this is the monetary policy that Satoshi Nakamoto came up with to ensure that the network would flourish over time, that it would keep up with an adoption rate, that these natural network effects would develop because of the desirability of getting to Bitcoin and the economic incentive for those miners to get the Bitcoin.
So when we talk about difficulty adjustments and all of these kind of checks and balances that exist within the system, this is not miners coming together and deciding to abide by this or that rule. These are mathematical rules that are just built into the Bitcoin protocol.
Absolutely. The code is a code, and the code is written as it is. And we can read the code, we can understand the code, so we know what the code is doing, but you can't alter the code. You can't try to game one up on the system. The network will ultimately reject any attempts to do that because it's using cryptographic hashes, and it's very easy. It's either valid or it's not valid. If it's valid, it's accepted. It's accepted into the blockchain. It's accepted by all the nodes, and we move on to the next block.
So if miners are the most involved entities in the Bitcoin network, so you've got people who just have Bitcoin, right? That's me. Then you have node operators, people who have the entire copy of the blockchain, and that continually gets updated and confirmed. And then you have miners who are actually doing the work of solving cryptographic puzzles, updating the blockchain, and then getting Bitcoins as a reward. So do miners have more authority than anybody else in the system? And if they do, how does the system prevent abuses?
So the miners are actually pretty dumb, right? They're actually...
As people?
No, they're the mining process itself is very dumb.
That's harsh. Okay.
All it's doing is it's searching for these answers it's searching this incredible number space.
And these are just random guesses, right? So it's just churning out guesses, like trillions of guesses.
And they're doing it, and they're as the terahash of the equipment increases, it's just doing it faster and faster. That's all it's doing.
What is a terahash?
A terahash is 1 million hashes. So it's a measure of the processing power of the miner. Okay, so I think we're up to like 19 terahashes, the latest equipment. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's effectively a measure of how powerful your miner is.
So if the miners are the ones doing the most work within the Bitcoin network, then do they also correspondingly have the most control over the Bitcoin network? And like who mines the miners? Like who polices them?
Right. So the miners are, they're pretty dumb. Mm-hmm. They're following a process
That's right. Idiots.
They're just going through a whole lot of numbers very quickly. Mm-hmm. They're just hashing. Their mining equipment is guessing at through the number space very quickly. And the more powerful their miner is, the faster they're going to guess through this.
And these are huge numbers, so it's not like you or I could sit there and throw numbers. Guesses at the machine.
No, and they're all guesses, and they're all happening very quickly. And if they guess properly, they get the block reward. And that's all that's happening on the miner side of things. That's it. So it sounds complicated, but all these miners are doing is guessing and getting rewarded.
So you're just setting up machines, the machines just do it.
That's it.
As a person, you're just investing in the infrastructure. You don't really have to do anything yourself.
Absolutely. They don't have a say. They have a say in so much as they're given an opportunity to adopt updates to the Bitcoin protocol. Like we saw that with Taproot. They could signal support for Taproot. But then if they didn't signal support, there was this backup mechanism for the node operators to signal support. So who has the power in Bitcoin? It's the node operators. And why is that? It's because it's the most decentralized way to have, some level of consensus. And it's cheap to be a node operator. You could do it with $150 worth of hardware, a little Raspberry Pi. You put some software on it, you add it to a network, you're done. You're a node operator.
Raspberry Pi is the hardware.
The Raspberry Pi, yeah,
Okay,
it's a little computer. It's a little tiny computer. It's a $150 computer.
Okay, so I got hungry.
And you can run it on an old laptop. You could run it on very low-priced equipment.
So running a node is super accessible.
So super accessible, super democratized. So that's why the Bitcoin community, by and large, promotes that the node operators really have the consensus and really have the power through consensus.
So I know you operate a node. I know some of us in the office operate a node. I don't operate a node.
We have a node now on the website that you could access.
Do you? Yeah, do we? I will have to access that node. I also should be operating a node. Why not? I should node up. We should all node up. But the question is mining accessible to regular people? So is there a way for me to participate in mining in some way without putting up capital, without being like a quote unquote miner with like a whole rig and tens of thousands of dollars of infrastructure?
To do it properly, you really,
you have to invest.
Otherwise, there's just too many risks.
Right.
There's pools and, I've never looked into that. A lot of them are scammy.
So you don't mind at all?
No, I don't mind. No. I looked into it. It's just that because of my geographical location and the cost of energy over here, it wouldn't have been profitable for me. I could have bought a miner and put it into a facility, in Kentucky, or there's a great outfit called Compass Mining, and you can go onto their website, you can pick a location, pick a miner, they'll install it for you, they'll connect the power, and you could pay them monthly, and you can get the, Bitcoin reward, and you can, sell that on a network to keep your costs, Is
that a good idea? Is that something people should do?
What's the option that's just as profitable is maybe buying Bitcoin today, right? And then knowing, because you have an economic incentive there, knowing that if you hold it long enough, it will ultimately become profitable.
Yeah, never mind all my questions. I'm just doing that. I'm not mining anymore.
So, and that's what most people do. Would I be profitable in mining? Is it worth the effort? Is it worth the time, right? There's a time commitment involved. Right. Or do I just buy the Bitcoin now and save all that trouble? Leave that up to the people that are really doing it at scale, right? Because I think the right way to do it is to really do it with some level of scale, to go in with big money and do it, run it like a business and make it a full-time job. Then it's worth your time, and then you can apply a lot more optimizations and try to squeeze every last penny out of the Bitcoin network. But unless you're doing that, unless you're approaching it like a true entrepreneur, it's probably worth it just to buy it now and just hold it for No one's ever lost value in Bitcoin for holding it for 3.5 years. So it's just, that's just the way Bitcoin works. And I think we talked about that a little bit. And
yeah, we did. Like if you Sleeping Beauty'd it, if you just conked out now, held your Bitcoin for 3.5, 5 years, you'd wake up having...
Historically, that's been true. Will that continue to be true? Is literally the $1 million question.
Well, historically, you would have woken up with a 28% per year return.
Yes.
Upon the prince kissing you or whatever you're into, whoever you want.
Out of a coma, right?
The, genderless prince or whatever. But so now we kind of understand how mining works. And the truth is, do we even really need to understand? Does the average Bitcoin holder or even node operator need to exactly understand the intricacies of cryptography and how mining works?
Not the intricacies. I think the key takeaway is that, there is a real economic system that backs the value of Bitcoin. It's, there's also a market demand for Bitcoin. There's also problems that it solves from a technology perspective. There's also constant adoption. There's constant demand. And so as long as you know there's actually a tie back to physical reality, and this isn't just created out of nothing, that tie back is the energy that goes into this mining process. You got it.
And that's what we need to know.
Basically it, yeah.
All right, nice. That's mining. That's mining in depth for us. If you have any questions, we would love to hear from you in the comments. And if you like this video and want to hear more from us, we would love to see that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to us already, please subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so that you can get all of our in-depth and bite-sized videos constantly as we release them. And Omar, I think that's it for us.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm Keren Margolis. This is Omar Sabek for
Thank you.
our Bitcoin In-Depth, and we will see you next time.